Recently, I've become fascinated with the idea of 3D printing houses. And because of its many benefits, I believe that this style of home building will grow in the coming years. 3D printed homes use less raw materials, require less labor time, and result in less waste. So all this means that 3D printing home will not only offer more affordable housing, but it's also a more sustainable option in building homes. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Ed Macnab of 3D PHC, a company based in Calgary, and he is planning on beginning to build 3D printed homes, which I think is so amazing. Welcome, Ed. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. To begin, I would love to hear what made you decide to take on this emergent home building method.
Well, first, thank you for inviting me to be here. I really do appreciate the opportunity to talk with someone who is as enthusiastic as we are. So that's pretty cool. This company came to be in a rather, perhaps a fairly typical way for early stage startups. One of our founding directors had been a hobby printer. He'd been using a plastics 3D printer for several years. And because of his involvement in that community, he started seeing news articles about European companies that had scaled up these printers to enormous sizes and were starting to print walls and houses and garages and things like that. Now, most of the video he saw was CGI graphics rendering because people weren't actually building houses yet. They were planning on it. And that was Frank, one of our founding directors and our lead designer. He was chatting with a friend, probably at a Tim Hortons, about this, and they started sketching out plans for houses on napkins and stuff. And Frank said, you know, I really think that we could make a really good business out of this, but I don't know anything about construction. And his friend did the classic, put her hand up and said, I might know a guy. So they had a mutual friend, and that's David, who is also a founding director, and he's our director of materials and construction. So David and Frank started meeting at Tim's and talking about, is this a viable thing? Should we continue? And they both said, well, we don't really have enough business experience to do this. This is a big deal. This is not like selling homemade soap. David put his hand up in the air and said, I might know a guy. That guy was me. So I joined the two of them, and now the three of us met in Tim's and occasionally kitchens. And we met about once a month. And we talked about, is this a real thing? And should we take this and run with it? Are we willing to put in the effort to make it go? And we did that for almost 2 years. We tossed it around and rolled it about, and then we decided, yes, let's do this. So we each put in a little bit of money, and we picked up another director, Gary, and he happens to be not only a 3D printing specialist, but an electronics engineering technologist with a specialty in robotics and controls and stuff. So that rounded out our base team, and that's how we got formed.
That is a fantastic synergy of expertise amongst the four of you. That is really interesting. Also love the fact that Tim's is the sort of the place of choice to meet. Although now I would imagine it's all the kitchens.
Yeah, how Canadian is that?
Indeed. Well, and that's the other thing. That's the other thing that I was really excited about, is that there is a Canadian company that is looking at 3D printing homes. And I have seen some videos of the machines in Europe that are actually 3D printing these homes, and it is just unbelievable and outstanding. So your mission is to build 3D homes, and what is the goal that you're trying to achieve with 3D printing homes, and what is the sort of pull that is drawing you towards this particular project?
So we're still a pre-revenue company. We don't own a printer yet, but we have a mission and a vision, and we are absolutely dedicated to it. By now, it should be common knowledge to anyone with eyes that Canada has several really serious housing challenges, and the current infrastructure has been unable to address them and remediate them. In a civilized society, every person, no matter their social or economic capacity, should have a safe and comfortable place to call home. It's just intrinsic to living, particularly in a place like Canada, where the weather can be challenging, shall we say. So our focus is specifically and very narrowly focused at the lower cost end of the housing market. We want to assist organizations that are housing the homeless. We want to assist, we want to build for nonprofit organizations that are providing assisted living or subsidized housing. Every city in Canada has an organization that provides subsidized housing to low-income families. Our objective is to reduce their costs to build new units so much that it reduces the load on the taxpayers by reducing the amount of subsidy necessary. So people will be able to pay closer to fair value without costing themselves more, and the cities will have to subsidize less because the units are less expensive to build, less expensive to maintain, better insulated, and just overall better places to live. So the current situation in Canada is that the conventional building industry either cannot or will not keep up with demand. And I choose to believe that it cannot. I don't believe in big conspiracies deliberately not building enough to keep the prices high. I don't think that's what's happening. The labor and materials needed to build the number of housing units needed is beyond the capacity of this country to provide. We don't have enough lumber. I don't know if you're aware, but the price of construction lumber has doubled in the last month. Lumber, as much as it is a renewable resource, a great deal of it is taken from non-renewable sources, cutting down old growth forests and things like that. So we really have a mission to reduce the first-time buyer's cost of entry into the housing market. And the phrase that I've coined is that we will create a new stratum of housing affordability below what is currently considered entry level.
And that is fantastic, not only in the low income earners, but the children of the future, who the future is so uncertain, and they're not certain how they're going to be able to manage even coming into the home buying realm based on traditional home building construction. And like you say, the materials being limited resources, limited times of the manufacturers, and certainly I think everybody's stretched, right? So I would probably hazard a guess that yes, it is that builders are unable to keep up with the demand of what is required. Now, in terms of sort of the size of the home based on the 3D print, would it be a little bit smaller as well than a traditional standard home? And because you mentioned that it would be better for insulation and it would be a stronger structure as well. And now the materials, what kind of materials are being used? There's a lot of questions in that one question, but I suppose the question is what is the size that this home will be, or a varying degree of sizes? And what are the materials that are being used to build these 3D homes?
I'd like to back up to the beginning of your very long list of questions and note that in Canada, there are well over 150,000 people who are truly homeless. They need a place to live. 150,000 is bigger than many cities in Canada. We need to help these people. We then have tens of thousands who are living in subsidized housing in cities across this country. And those homes are subsidized by taxpayers, and we want to reduce that burden. And we have hundreds of thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of people who are paying so much for basic housing that other necessities of life or niceties of life are being set aside. Their kids can't go to hockey or dance class because there isn't enough money left over once they pay for housing and the true necessities. So we're absolutely looking to change that. And then to slide into your question about size, it's an interesting question. So for as long as we've been building houses in Canada, we've been building rectangular boxes, and then we've been dividing them up with flat walls into smaller rectangular boxes, and we call those rooms. And because of that, we need hallways to get from one room to the other rooms, or from the big room to the small rooms. And it's a function of building with long, straight, flat pieces of building material. That's just the way it works. It's insanely expensive to build curved walls using conventional construction materials. So because our material is fluid and our robot is not constrained by these flat surfaces and straight walls and square corners, we can build a house slightly smaller, but divide it up differently, and the robot doesn't care. It just builds what you tell it to. So our design freedom allows us to, say, build a two-bedroom home in 800 or 900 square feet, where conventional construction might want 1,000 or 1,100. Right. Where a three-bedroom home is typically 1,200 to 1,400 square feet, and that number is going up. Oddly enough, builders are building bigger homes, and people are having to buy bigger homes, and very often more than they need. So by getting the customer involved in the design process, throwing away the ruler and designing freeform on a computer and saying, well, yeah, our robot can build that. That's no big deal. We can give people more comfortable, livable space and still use less ground or less land for the footprint.
Because there's less waste of space as well in these designs then, right?
That's right. That's right. There's another significant advantage to 3D construction printing using a robot to do the lion's share of the work. The workplace ends up being much safer, reducing workers' compensation claims and personal injury. We have fewer people on site to begin with. There's dramatically reduced lifting and carrying because the robot does the heavy work. The high work is done by a robot, so there's less scaffold, less ladder work. And this is kind of a hallmark, I guess. Our construction workers carry iPads and tablets instead of skill saws and nail guns. So the opportunity for workplace injury is dramatically reduced. You couple that with now, we have a situation where people in wheelchairs can be construction workers. This can become far more inclusive because they don't need to be climbing ladders and swinging hammers and that kind of stuff. So the advantages just keep building and building, and the longer we look at it, the more obvious it is that this is a disruptive technology that will change the way we build homes.
That's another good word, disruptors. I actually do think that 3D printing is going to disrupt the construction companies. And although you say that, you know, some of this work is going to be done by robots and can be all inclusive or inclusive of people with disabilities being able to operate the systems, but we still need the technical people to do all those things. And I think there very often there's a bit of a fear that when new technology comes in and it's going to require less people, that there's going to be less jobs. However, look at the computer. We all thought that the computers would make our life easier, but I don't see that there's any lack of requiring to use the computer or be able to use the computer or work with the computer than there was before. So some of those fears that I think are in the early stages at this point can be alleviated just based on that analogy.
Yeah, there will be some pushback, I expect, from the trade unions. We will use fewer carpenters, for instance, because we won't be framing houses in the traditional sense. But we will still need electricians, plumbers, cabinet installers, roofers, tile setters. Those sorts of trades will still be doing as much work as they ever did. We will be training crews to operate and maintain the construction robot itself, the mixing stations, the delivery and pumps, and all the technical paraphernalia that allows the robot to do its work. So we will still have a crew on site and they will still be working. They'll just be doing more technical work, and with any kind of luck, they'll be very well paid. That's certainly our intent. We expect to be one of Canada's top 10 employers as far as employee satisfaction goes.
And that just brings up another thing. The carpenters that will be creating the interiors of these homes, if they are curved walls, for example, then they will have a little bit of creative possibilities with that construction as well. So then the skill levels might even need to be a little bit greater than what we currently know.
Yeah, depending on how the interior is finished. Some people really like that layered, almost coiled rope look with the rippled effect vertically. Some people really like that and say it makes the walls more interesting. So a good coat of paint, well, there's a trade that won't go away, a good coat of paint, and you have a more interesting living space rather than flat walls and drywall and that sort of stuff. We're banking on it getting to be a really significant change in Canada. And, you know, I've spent a lot of time talking about affordability and that sort of stuff. There's enough work at the low cost level that we will be able to stay busy for the foreseeable future.
And that's another place where the collaboration with other construction companies can come in, where, you know, you're focusing on affordable housing for those who require it. And then for the early adopters who would like to have the McMansion, good term, then that's a great way to collaborate with other 3D printing construction companies to share in that business as well, if that's what works, right? Again, the collaboration
Absolutely.
is there.
Absolutely. And the same is true of industrial and commercial buildings. We have no desire to do that. That doesn't mean we would refuse. You know, if our machines were idle and someone came along and said, I need to build a warehouse, we want it 3D printed. If we had a machine available, we would do it. We would never go looking for that. So if we have partners in the industry who actually want to do that, then let's just pass it on. I don't want that job, but I know somebody who does. I know a guy.
We come right back to the very beginning, right? I know
Exactly.
a guy.
Exactly.
That sounds awesome. Well, Ed, I am actually really excited for the future of 3D printing in the construction industry. And I see so many applications on every level, like you just mentioned, like from the affordable housing for those who require it, for anybody else who's looking for perhaps wanting to leave a lesser footprint in constructing their home. And then the industrial is something that I hadn't even really considered at this point, although that makes the most sense, in fact, because those buildings are generally made from that sort of material that you would be using for the 3D printing of the homes.
That's right. Well,
What do you feel are the challenges in a couple of manners? What are the challenges in regulations and having approval for 3D printed houses? And what are the challenges in making the public aware that this is a possibility, and it is a possibility for affordable housing for so many people that require it?
well, again, I'll take your second question first. Doing podcasts like this and getting our name out and having people go to our website and see what we're proposing, see what we're doing, is the early stage of getting the public involved. On our website, we have a contact us page, ask us a question. We have 60 early adopters who want us to build for them now.
Nice.
If we had a machine, we could start building literally as soon as it gets not quite so damn cold here. So
Spring is coming.
This is working. Absolutely, spring is coming. The material and the approval. So that's a really big challenge. The construction industry is very well established, very well entrenched, and it has very large code books that tell builders how they must build. The good thing is we've been building with concrete in Canada for over 100 years. And the material that we use through these 3D printers is a version of concrete. So, oh, by the way, talk about fire resistant housing. It's all concrete walls. This is a really good thing, particularly in high rises and townhomes. But this particular material and this particular building method have not been used yet, so that it doesn't fit into the code at the moment. There are ways, or there are exceptions provided for in the code. If you can prove to the inspection authority that your wall is as strong as or stronger than the rules in the code, then you can get a one-time exemption. No one wants to build a construction company that has to get one-time exemptions for every single building they build. It's time-consuming and it's expensive. So we are working now with code writers and code approvers and inspection authorities across the country and internationally to set standards to which this industry will adhere. Just within the last couple of weeks, we've been invited to join, and we did join, an ISO ASTM working group to set the quality standards for 3D construction printing. And so that will become an international standard. ISO is the European International Standards Organization, and ASTM is the American Society for Testing of Materials. So it'll be both North American and European standards for quality of 3D printed homes.
That is very exciting news, in that the
really
world is coming together. And I know that there's companies in the US that have started, sort of have prototypes of buildings, and the Europeans are certainly ahead in the 3D printing of homes. I'm not sure, where are we at in Canada? Are there any 3D printed homes anywhere in the country at this time?
A company in Nelson, BC has built a test prototype sample showcase home It's incredibly small. It's in the order of 300 square feet, and it's shaped like a snail shell. So as you walk through the curved corridor, you get from room to room to room. So there's no internal walls in that respect. It's built in their back lot of an industrial facility, so it can't be lived in. It's not properly zoned. To the best of our knowledge, that's the only one in the entire country. So here's what we think. It would be beyond atrocious to think that we are the only people in Canada with the moxie to do this. We expect that there are other companies at a similar stage to us that are keeping a low profile, flying below the radar for whatever reasons. We've decided that the time has come to be a little more forthright, be a little more out in the open. And we actually invite anyone else who is at a similar stage to us, looking to do this, wants to do this, get in touch with us. Let's collaborate. Let's build a consortium of 3D housing printer companies all across this country, and so create a larger voice, perhaps create an industry association, start lobbying and that sort of thing. We expect, we hope, to be building this year, 2021. We're not there yet, but we expect to be doing it. We certainly hope so. You know, I'm an entrepreneur. By definition, I must be an optimist, because if you take on this kind of a project and are not an optimist, you'll end up killing yourself, or at least spending your life as an Eeyore. So we're optimistic. We're going to get this done, and we're going to start building this year.
Fantastic. And you're definitely speaking my language when it comes to collaboration. I believe that I think we're far stronger when we're pushing against the same wall. And so if anybody out there is considering 3D printing and wants to talk to somebody, I would strongly suggest that you get in touch with Ed Macnab, 3D PHC in Calgary. Easy to find on the internet. Just Google it. And start the discussion, because I really do think that it's important that we do start talking about it across the country for all the benefits of it. Certainly there will be challenges because we're still in the early stages of this type of construction, but I just really feel that there could be so much good that could come from adopting this method of construction. So Ed, what do you need, or what would you like for people to know in order for us to go ahead on this kind of trajectory with 3D printing in construction of homes?
I'd like to touch one more time on the social justice warrior aspect of our company. Housing is actually suicide prevention or suicide mitigation, because the homeless population, or those who are horribly financially stressed by housing costs, are more susceptible to suicide, hopelessness. So housing is good for mental health. Good housing, affordable housing, reduces domestic abuse by reducing in-family stress. It reduces addiction by reducing stress. It's just overall the obvious stop people from dying, from freezing to death is one thing, but the subtext for the other social benefits of affordable housing for all it just goes on and on and on. So what do we need? So we have now industry partners in the concrete business and in the machinery manufacturing business. We have partners in academia on material science, waste reduction through incorporation of, say, plastic waste into the print material. We're working with a group out of Waterloo for that. We have close ties into all levels of government and to government agencies that are involved in supporting affordable housing initiatives across the country. We're forging relationships with nonprofits, those who would use the government money to build and then choose us as their builder of choice. We have an ever-growing list of early adopters who are ready to go on single unit projects while we set up to start multi-unit projects. What we're doing now, and this podcast is part of it, is we are preparing our company, and we're very nearly there, to approach or seek out angel investors who share our values, and that's really important, and see the future of this construction method and the value of it. So we're looking for an angel investor. In their world, our need is relatively small at the moment to allow us to get going. So if any of your viewers happen to be sitting on a bag of cash and want to do some social good, have them call me.
That sounds great, Ed. And just as you were speaking, I had the image of a drop of water on this ocean where the ripples just go further and further and further and further in who it helps. And that one drop is you, and then there's more drops that you want to combine with to make the ripples even bigger. And you mentioned something, which was the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations who want to do social good within the communities here. And I think that's important. So you're looking for collaboration amongst a lot of different groups. You've got the construction industry, you have the governments that you're working with, you have the organizations that would like to utilize that, and then there's the people that actually are going to reside in these homes and then create a ripple. And certainly COVID has helped to emphasize the mental health issues within our society, and how this has even made us put a spotlight on it even more, because the hardships are even greater at this time with so many people that are out of work. So, you know, a couple of years ago when this was just an idea, the world was a bigger and different place than it is today. And certainly this need is great. And I thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. And it has given me a lot of excitement for what the future holds for the people who need affordable housing, and for also creating a greener earth in using this method of building construction. So thank you so much for joining me.
You're very, very welcome. Please do have a pleasant day and stay safe.
Thank you so much. This is Linda Lohan from A Greener Earth Talk Series, signing off. Have a wonderful day.